So Kanye West is in hot water for just about everything. Seriously, if you were to just make a list of just bad things, he would have done a surprising amount of things on that list. Mocked handicapped people? Check. Harassed people on social media? Check. Made numerous anti-Semitic comments? Check. Chewed jawbreakers? Well, I don't have proof of this one, but come on, look at this guy. That is the face of a man that chews jawbreakers. Now, I'll give you some context to everything that's going on in just a minute, so if you're lost, don't worry. But amid his many recent controversies, I stumbled across this tweet. Kanye West could have his music removed from Spotify soon. The platform's CEO condemned the rapper's anti-Semitic comments and said that Spotify is deciding whether or not to remove the songs. So let's talk about this, because this is a very complicated issue. But before we get into that, I'll give you everything you need to know in the green screen backstory. This is Ye, aka Kanye Omari West, which... did it catch anyone else off guard that he had a middle name? Producer, musician, fashion designer, and all around one of the most recognizable people of the current day. He's also well aware of his fame and accomplishments because he's compared himself to people like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and Pablo Picasso. But I mean, like, Leonardo da Vinci literally ushered in a new age of art, and Kanye's still trying to figure out if that one girl is a gold digger or not. Now, Kanye West has had his fair share of controversies, which individually have done very little to tarnish his image or curb his huge wealth and fame. And they've basically just become internet memes at one point or another. In fact, he's had so many controversies that the controversies section of his Wikipedia article has over 3,000 words in it and makes up almost 10% of the entire article. Now, some of the more notable ones in 2013, he was attacked by a lot of human rights groups when he performed in Kazakhstan, which at the time had one of the worst human rights violations rankings in the world. In 2016, he tweeted that Bill Cosby was innocent, which I feel like needs no explanation. And in 2018, he said that he thought slavery was the fault of the people who were enslaved. Now, I feel like it's not in my place to lecture people on just what a pile of horse that is, so what I'm just going to do is read you exactly what he said, and I'll allow you to come to your own conclusions about it. He said, "When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. You were there for 400 years. It's all of y'all. It's like we're mentally imprisoned." And then he doubled down on Twitter later and said, "Of course I know slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point is, for us to have stayed in that position, even though the numbers were on our side, that means we were mentally enslaved. The reason why I brought up the 400 years point is that we cannot be mentally imprisoned for another 400 years. We need free thought now. Even the statement was an example of free thought. It was just an idea. Once again, I am being attacked for presenting new ideas." Kanye, what the fuck? Now, as many other controversies have kind of culminated in his most recent controversy, which is anti-Semitism. On October 7th, because it's somehow only been a month since all of this went down, Kanye West made a post on Instagram suggesting that Puff Daddy was controlled by the Jews. This post got a lot of backlash and caused a lot of people to label the comment and Kanye West as anti-Semitic. And then Instagram suspended him. Not to be deterred by the consequences of his own actions, he then took to Twitter to make death threats against all Jews in existence, and then was promptly suspended from Twitter. Are you seeing a pattern here? Then it came out that he had made anti-Semitic comments both on Fox News and in an interview with TMZ, and in both instances, the comments were edited out of the final cut, but were later leaked to the media and aired. Then, after spending almost 3 weeks making disparaging comments against the Jews, Kanye West got upset that he was being targeted by the Jewish media and the Zionist Jews, and refused to back down from his comments, which... okay, first of all, you started it. Second of all, imagine I just started dropping the N-word everywhere. And then I got upset and I was like, OMG, I can't believe all these black people are upset about this and they're all targeting me. Well, yes, of course. They're snapping back because you are encouraging anti-Semitism and enabling hate crimes. Now, this all culminated in Kanye West being banned from most social media platforms and losing his sponsorship or partnership deals with most of his major businesses. This tanked his net worth from $1.8 billion all the way down to $400 million. So he's a lowly, poor peasant just like you and I. And as he sits here a shell of his former self, he might also be removed from Spotify for all the aforementioned offenses. And with that green screen backstory out of the way, back to you sitting, Andrew Daniels. And now with that backstory out of the way, we can talk about whether or not Kanye West should be kicked off of Spotify, and how if he was removed from Spotify, that removal would be different from the aforementioned Adidas, etc. brands getting rid of him. But before we get into it too deep, I want to say I don't actually know whether or not he should be kicked off. I'm super conflicted on the matter for several reasons. The first of which being, big corporations just have too much power. Now, I'm never going to argue that Kanye's anti-Semitism is okay in any capacity. Not only is he forwarding harmful stereotypes and just straight up lies, he's also emboldening other people to do the same and take their own anti-Semitic stances, with Kanye West hailed as kind of the leader and hero of the new movement. But if we decide that Spotify should be allowed to just kick him off, that raises a more difficult question of where that line should be. Now, there's a reasonable argument to be made that anti-Semitism is that line. And I'm actually down with Kanye West being kicked off, just kind of in a general, he's a terrible person kind of way. But my concern is the implications of that decision. Now, Kanye West will be fine financially. Worst case scenario, he sells everything he owns and he's able to live off of that and the business investments that he's made over his life. But it's not difficult to see how something like normalizing deplatforming people we disagree with could backfire. Now, I argued a few months back that Andrew Tate should have been banned, and I stand by that decision because he had a pattern of abuse and misogyny that was negatively affecting both the platform he was on and the people that he was exposed to. It was directly bad for YouTube and TikTok to platform someone that was spewing that kind of garbage. Basically, it would just invite other people to do the same thing, and then you would get kind of this pattern of this content being raised up on the platform, and then a lot of people who weren't extremists with those views would just leave. And with them, they would take the advertisers, and there goes your main source of income. I think that situation is much more similar to Adidas pulling the plug on their Yeezy collaboration. Spotify, however, I don't think stands to lose anything. This is the company that had one of the most successful musicians in the world, Taylor Swift, railing against it and pulling her music from 2014 to 2017. If they can thrive without Taylor's music for years, they will be fine without Kanye. All this to say, Spotify's brand is not in danger by being a host of Kanye's music. It's the difference of allowing versus endorsing. Adidas and other brands were actively endorsing Kanye by partnering with him and selling his stuff. Spotify just kind of passively allows anyone to put their music up there, and it's not any kind of an endorsement. It's the difference between me inviting you to my house, where I would be actively associating with you, and you and me happening to be in the same public park at the same time, because anyone's allowed in public parks. Nobody would say that you and the Parks and Rec department of your city were in cahoots because you're allowed in public parks. Because they're public parks. Anyone can go there. It doesn't mean anything if you're there. Now, I want to back up a little bit to my original statement of big business has too much power. I think a good example of this is Ethan Klein being banned from Twitter, essentially because he made a joke at Elon Musk's expense and Elon got butthurt and kicked him off the platform. Given Twitter's size, it's very significant for a lot of creators' incomes if they are kicked off. That kind of banning can have huge financial repercussions. Now, if we set a standard that every platform just cuts off the creators that they disagree with or think are wrong, that's a very slippery slope to creators just being banned and unbanned on the whim of whoever happens to be in charge. And that is something that we're currently seeing with Twitter and Elon Musk. And again, I'm actually fine with Kanye West being banned, I think, both because he's rich and will therefore be just fine, and also because I think wherever we decide this line for this deplatforming is, probably anti-Semitism and encouraging hate crimes crosses. And all this brings us to the big question, should he be removed? My gut reaction is yes, he should be removed. But as a response to this tweet says, if we remove Elon Musk, probably we would have to remove people like Morgan Wallen and Joe Rogan. And suddenly we have to start vetting everyone that's done anything controversial or something we deem morally wrong, and then make a judgment call on whether or not they deserve to have the platform that they do. And I also don't agree with all the people on this list. Morgan Wallen gave a pretty substantial apology for the racist remarks he made. And Joe Rogan's podcast is pretty difficult to judge one way or the other, but he also gave a pretty sincere apology for his use of the N-word. But what about someone like Marilyn Mason? If the allegations are true, he should be off the platform, right? Or what about R. Kelly? He got a 30-year sentence. Shouldn't he be off the platform? But then we would have to take this all the way, right? Elvis Presley had quite the affinity for underage girls, and he was 24 when he met his wife, who was 14 at the time. Chris Brown is still on the platform, and so is 6ix9ine. If you're going to enforce a bad people get removed policy, then Spotify isn't going to have enough popular artists to remain in business. But let's say I change my mind and decide that Kanye West shouldn't be removed for all the aforementioned reasons, even though he probably should. That paves the way for people like EDP445 to remain on platforms like YouTube, despite him trying to meet up with underage fans. But if that's the line, then we would have to get rid of people like Call Me Carson, which I'm a little more opposed to because he spent quite some time actively trying to make up for his decisions. So then if the line becomes you do something bad and then you aren't penitent enough for it, then you get removed, then we have an issue of morality judgment, because then it becomes someone's job to look at what you did and then look at your apology and decide if what you did was bad enough, and then if your apology was good enough you can stay, or if you weren't apologetic enough then you have to go. And that just becomes really complicated. And also, that kind of morality is so subjective and varies so much from person to person. That would be a horrible system. So if it becomes a hard line of you do something bad, you get removed, then we need to get rid of Mr. Beast for using the F slur, and PewDiePie and Pay Money Wubby for their use of the N-word, and Call Me Carson and Mini Lad for their solicitation of inappropriate things from underage fans. My point is, none of this is ever as simple as it seems. Should Kanye West be removed from Spotify? I want to say yes, but I'm also hesitant to, because it's just, where does that lead us? Thanks for watching.